All right, so let's say review for exam one. Let's say review for exam one. And I'm just going to write this as a, you're going to have to sort of write with me when I can find it. So let's say review for exam one. Okay, so the exam is next Thursday. Now, let's say Roman numeral one. Let's say hypothesis testing. This is what we did the very, like, I think we even did this on day one. Basic kind of review, where we're going to say a two-tailed large samples. Okay, that just means that rejection region are on both ends there. So you're gonna have to really do a big reverse and go back to what we talked about the first time in terms of drawing the normal curve, figuring out what alpha is. Like if I give you alpha, can you figure out what the cutoffs are, right? So you're gonna need your Z table. You're gonna need your Z table for that. Now remember, this topic is not gonna be on the final, but it is gonna be on exam one. So I would really force myself to back and do one of these types of problems where you're going to have to use the Z table, figure out what the cutoffs are, and kind of how to conclude from that. Yes.
Does that say two-tailed large samples?
Yeah, two-tailed large.
Okay, sorry, it's just kind of blurry.
Okay, yeah, two-tailed large samples. And the reason I said that is because a lot of times when I teach this course, I also do what's called a one-sided test, but I didn't worry about that for this class. One-sided test just means all of your alpha is either on this side or either on this side over here. It's not difficult, but I just didn't feel like doing that this semester. Okay, so I'm just going to only deal with a situation where you have rejection area in the left and the right side. So we're not going to go over one of those problems because we just don't have time. But just force yourself to go back and look at, I don't know if it's on, I think maybe quiz one, maybe dealt with it. I can't remember. But you definitely want to make sure you go back and do both quizzes, quiz one and quiz two, again, to sort of make sure you force yourself to kind of sort of think through where the Z table comes into effect, how to get those cutoff points, and how to write the solution. Roman numeral two, let's say one way ANOVA, one-way ANOVA. All right, and this really should be a capital A. Now let's say capital A right here. Let's say solving one-way ANOVA problems, solving one-way ANOVA problems by hand. Okay? And what that simply means is we went through that long process of finding the F-test statistic, right? Where F-test was, yes.
That says one-way ANOVA, correct?
Yes, solving one-way ANOVA problems by hand. And I'm going to write this right here, F-test equals N times S squared with a little X bar down here over S squared pooled. Okay, so this tells you how to calculate the F-test statistic. So you want to make sure you know how to do this by hand. It's a grueling process, but we went over kind of how to do that, especially with this part right here, S squared sub X bar. So if you're still struggling with how to do that, you want to make sure you go back and force yourself to do a problem like that, because you're definitely going to see that on the exam. And this is doing it without Excel, right? So of course we know the strategy of how to do ANOVA in Excel now, but can you do it by hand? And I have ways to know if you know how to do it by hand. So, yes.
Will we have the full class period to take the exam next week?
Yes. Yes. All right, B, using Excel to solve one way, using Excel to solve one-way ANOVA problems. Okay, so A says solving one-way ANOVA problems by hand, like the F-test statistic, and of course using the F table. B says using Excel to solve one-way ANOVA problems. I'll just leave this right here and I'll just do C. Using Excel to solve one-way.
So we are allowed to use our notes for the test.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay.
even if I said no, I mean, I go to LA and sit in your room, you know. So yeah, I'm going to write the exam pretty much knowing that you're going to be using your notes, right? So, and ordinarily, when I give these exams, I have you to do a cheat sheet. I don't know if I brought this up before, like a one-page cheat sheet. And I really would encourage you still to do that because I just think it helps you study a little bit more, as opposed to just having this big, humongous book and sort of thumbing through where is that, where is that. I think if you employ the notion of putting everything on front and back, I really think that'll help you study, right? And whatever concepts you're weak on, you want to definitely kind of focus on that and maybe put that on your cheat sheet or whatever. But yeah, you can use your notes. You can, you just can't use another person, right? All right, C, applying the Tukey range procedure. Applying the Tukey range procedure. So now, and you're going to have your Q table handy. So if I give you a situation on Excel, right, where if I choose to do one-way ANOVA and you end up rejecting 8 sub 0, you're going to have to know how to use that Tukey worksheet and your Q table to figure out what is the arrangement of H1 now. And we went over that some time ago. So if this is kind of fuzzy, you're going to have to go back and watch those earlier video recordings to kind of figure out how to do that. Roman number 3. Two-way ANOVA. Now, we didn't do anything by hand in two-way. Some of my colleagues, when they teach this, they go through all those calculations and stuff with two-way. I chose not to do that. We're just going to use, if you're being asked for two-way, I'm either going to give you a printout like on the quiz. So I'm going to say using Excel to solve. So you're going to have to, this says using. So go back, we did a problem, I think, on, what was that? Drive-through times Harlem, Chelsea. So just go back and look at how we put that data in. And in case I ask you about this, you'll have to remember, you have to put in Harlem, 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 Chelsea, 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 Chelsea. Remember kind of how we put that data in and how to get those results. Grasping, so B is grasping the notion of interaction. Grasping the notion of interaction. Because depending on what your results are for interaction, you may not even have to go through the next 2 steps, right? Some of us got a little confused on the quiz. That's why I really want you guys to go back and look at those quiz solutions to see when you move forward and when you don't, okay? C, determining the effects determining the effects of each factor. Determining the effects of each factor. I may or may not have to go to step 2 and step 3, or factor A or factor B, but if I end up accepting H sub 0, that there is no interaction, then I have to move on to what's going on with factor A and B. Okay, so you're going to have to know when to stop or when to keep moving forward. But again, anything that's involving two-way ANOVA, I would never ask you to find anything by hand, only on Excel. Either giving you a printout. And finally, Roman number 4, simple linear regression. So Roman number 4, simple linear regression. Okay? A, finding the slope and y-intercept. Finding the slope and y-intercept. Those ungodly formulas that we were working on last week. Summation of this, blah, 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 over. So I guess it's so similar to what I think Jaylene was asking about, like the problem today, 9.14. Okay, so you're going to be asked to like find those by hand. Scatter plots. Do you know how to draw a scatter plot? It's going to be like something with a lot of dots on it, right? You pretty much X, Y, X, Y, X, Y. Scatter plots and drawing the regression line, or the line of best fit. Okay. So it really should say finding and interpreting the slope and y-intercept. So I just say finding, just squeeze and interpreting. So that's what we went over this morning, how to interpret the slope and how to interpret the y-intercept. So I'll just say interpreting M and B. That's what we did this morning, interpreting M and B. So if I tell you what M is, 7.14, and I tell you that X is foot traffic, Y is sales, can you offer in a sentence an interpretation for those? Yes.
If we were to get wrong answers for M and B, but we did the whole steps right, like the whole formulas right, would we get like half credit?
Yeah, you get partial credit, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then finally, D, interpreting correlation. And the coefficient. Okay, so this says interpreting correlation. That's CORRELATION. And the coefficient, COEFFICIENT of determination. So that's the last thing we need to do today. So don't worry about if you don't understand D yet. We're going to do that today. Interpreting correlation and the coefficient of determination. You're going to need to have your Z table, your F table, and your Q table handy. Z, F, Q. And for the alpha level, just make sure you have, for 0.05 and 0.01. 0.05 and 0.01 for both of these, for the F and the Q. And it's just really front and back of the same form, but just make sure you have those.